Hello everyone, my name is Clementine, welcome to Clementine Creative, and today we have a character concept art process that I'm going to be voicing over, telling you about certain design decisions. That way, it'll help you, hopefully help you, to create your own character. Now I'm going to talk about some technical aspects of the design and, some other things, and also, when I see a certain point in this design, I will be talking some of the thoughts that I had while I created that. So let's not waste any time and let's get right into this. So the size of this paper or canvas is about 6,000 pixels wide in the end, because in the end I make it a little bit bigger because I add in two more poses, or should I say one more pose, but front and the back, that makes two more characters, so I had to make the canvas larger. I don't have many layers here, I only have two layers. When it comes to drawing, I have background layer which is white, and then I have this layer with the line art. Other layers include references and later on also the gray background, but you'll see that later. So some of the decisions that I took, and before I tell you about decisions that I had to make when I was designing this, I want to talk about references. Now references is something that a lot of beginning artists tend to leave out. How do I know this? I did it as well. Finding references to me was one of the most boring things ever. You had to go on the internet, do research, and it was just plain boring. When I changed my view to it, instead of, oh, it's boring, I changed that into, oh, it's educational and you're expanding your visual library. It became fun and useful because when you have references on, let's say on your right side like I have now, and you're referencing whatever you're doing now, right? Let's say you're designing a corset, and you have a corset on your right. The corset will look correct, and it will not look, made up, because when you're starting out, you don't really have a good perception of how things look like, right? You're just guessing, and guessing is never good, especially not in design. It'll backfire at you. Reason being that designers always do things that actually exist in real life. For instance, we never design something that doesn't exist already. We always design something that already exists, but we just change it a little bit. So we're not really coming up with something extraordinary, something really new. Right now, what you're seeing here is me gathering reference for weapons. Now I want to talk a little bit about weapons, and I want to talk about the placement that I chose to place on her. So as you can see, she has 5 swords. Now why did I give her 5 swords? It creates a really nice frontal silhouette. We can use the 5 swords as a combat style in the game, and obviously entertainment purpose. Now, is there actual usefulness in having 5 swords? Probably not. Probably having 5 swords is a stupid idea, considering that she is a ninja character, an assassin, climbing buildings and jumping. Having 5 swords would be very annoying, right? You can hit them, or one can fall out, and it's going to be very annoying when you're trying to pull them out. But this is an entertainment business, right? We're working for a game, so you're trying to get that sweet spot where you want to introduce usefulness to a certain item, but you also want to a certain degree, be influenced by entertainment. So in this case, I'm being influenced by entertainment in a way that I'm placing 5 swords on her because it looks cool, right? So you don't normally see an assassin have 5 swords. In the video games, it's definitely possible for that, and we can make the character not clumsy, and this will work out, right? She won't, lose her swords, or she'll be trained well to pull them out and not, pull out, while pulling out one, pulling out also the other, and falling down and alerting everyone. That would probably be, what would happen in real life, right? But this is not real life. This is entertainment. This is games, right? In games, we can do whatever we want. We obviously want to keep certain, touch with the reality, but we also want to introduce entertainment. So that's what I was thinking here. And like I said, it creates a really beautiful frontal silhouette, which is especially important for character design. So a lot of character designs actually start out as black silhouettes rather than some sort of complex line art. That's the only reason being it later on creates a much stronger design because the base, that's the silhouette, is really strong. So I guess the same can be said about the belt straps around her leg. Do they pose any usefulness? Not really. As a matter of fact, it might be really annoying to walk around with belts all over your leg, but it looks cool, and that's why we do it, right? We want to also get that cool element, because what designers are doing is designing things that people would pay real life money, to buy it. And sometimes you need to do drastic things, even though this is not that drastic, but sometimes you need to do certain things to get people to like it. So what I'm doing here is just trying to incorporate the design of swords, making them look out on the other side. Reason is just because of the silhouette. On the right you saw me deleting her face. Now what I'm gonna do there is gonna create a mask. You need to remember that you're a concept artist and not an illustrator. A lot of people get these two mixed because they look very similar but they're not. So as a concept artist, you need to think things through, because you're doing essentially blueprints for 3D character artists who will come after you and create these in 3D space. So to help them create these things, and to help people who work on the game, work on the story of the game, you need to help them understand what you were thinking when you were designing these things. So you need to design everything out. Sure, it looks cool when she has her mask on the side, but the mask is meant to be used in the game, so you also need to create a version where she has a mask on her face. Now, the easy way is to just take the face, enlarge it, and just paint the mask on it, which I did right here. So I'm struggling a little bit, but in the end I get it, and the design turns out pretty cool. I also want to talk about how you should approach, or at least how I think that you should approach concept art. And I'm mainly speaking here about the line art. I always approach line art in a very simple fashion. I don't do some crazy ass pose with, I can make her use all of her 5 swords right now in some 3/4 badass jumping motion, but that would be pretty ridiculous. First of all, we would hide a lot of design, right? When you're trying to create something cool, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're showing all of the design. That's why you need to have something simple where you can show off as much as possible. Now, the recommended, I guess, position would be 3/4 view. But what I like to do with line art is I like to make a frontal view. The pose can be a little bit something like here. You can see she has one arm a little bit higher than the other. But that's it, right? Nothing too special. Now the reason why I like to do frontal view is because it's a lot easier to now do the back view. I just take the character, mirror it, and that way I can get a really nice back view. I just have to modify a couple of things. Now this is not cheating. This is basically an approach that makes everything faster. Because in this industry, especially if you're a freelancer, you're gonna need to work fast, right? But remember, when you're starting out, and this is very important, when you're starting out, don't limit yourself to anything, especially not time. Time comes with practice. Even me, it takes me 8 hours to complete a line art. So I still have a long way to go. But never limit yourself with time. But anyways, if you can, take shortcuts. Think things through. A little bit more, not just, oh, this is gonna look cool from this side, but when you have to do the back view, you need to draw the character again, right? The pose. Of course, you can approach it if you're really good at posing. I'm very bad at posing, right? I mean, I am good at posing, but I'm very bad at, drawing this pose in a different view. So it's annoying, right? So what I do is just, I make a character be frontal. I do a front view, straight, nothing too fancy, and then just mirror the character to get the back view, and that way I have a nice solid design that the 3D artist can work off. And when it comes to the digital painting, where we decide, this is where I do basically the final designs, which I then also, if I do something different in the digital painting, I'll also change on the line art. But digital painting is where we decide the colors, the mood of the character, skin color and whatnot. When you do that, that's when you can go crazy with a 3/4 pose. But you don't want to make some jumping pose and some sword pulling or some slicing throats or whatever. Especially don't go into slicing throats, because that's just ridiculous and childish. But just go with a simple 3/4 pose, front and back, and then paint it. That way it'll be a lot easier. Line art is really important, right? But it's also very hard, because in painting you can suggest something, and in line art you can't. So that's why, think things through a little bit. Think what would be a great shortcut and what would make you basically achieve a good design in faster fashion. So here you can see I'm struggling with the back a little bit. I left it out, I didn't feel comfortable, but now I got back into it and I created this extra belt on her back which holds her swords. Now you would think that the swords would wiggle around, but they don't because of really hard leather. So this is really hard leather which holds swords firmly in place. I'm also going to add an extra belt here because I didn't know how to strap on these two back swords. What would I do? So I go back into the frontal view, add in another belt, and that fixes the problem. So I also want to talk about these belts on the side. What are they? So these belts, when I was doing it, I thought of them as basically like a climbing belt. So I went to climb with my brother and his girlfriend many times, and you have the safety gear, right? Now she doesn't have a safety belt like a traditional belt that goes over your legs. It's basically like a diaper almost. This is just a normal belt that she has on her waist. But in my when I was thinking about it, I thought it was really strong, and basically what she would use it for is when she was climbing a wall, she could strap herself so she wouldn't have to hold herself with her arms. So I thought this would be useful in a game. So here I'm trying to, insert the number 0, maybe name her Ninja 0 or whatever, but it didn't work out, so here I am going with a tattoo, which can later also create an interesting backstory, like, she's from a tribe or something. Here I am creating a sword, right? You can see those swords on the back, but now I'm just creating the concept art for the sword, right? You always want to create everything out. You want to make it clear what things look like, even swords, even if maybe you're not exactly a weapons artist or weapon concept artist, but usually, or at least that's how I think of it, if you're a character artist, try to be a gun concept artist as well. Maybe don't go into it like a professional gun, or I say gun, I mean weapons concept artist would. But try to learn the basics, because weapons add a lot to design, right? To the design of a character. They make the character complete. So here I'm thinking about, the knife, and I'm thinking about the swords. So I'm just about done with the basic, pose of front and back, and I'm now going to create another pose, a little bit more interesting pose from this frontal view. I'm going to create a very basic presentation of how, let's say, she would maybe use her swords in a certain time. So I am copying her and I'm putting one sword in her arm, so she's holding it, and one will be in her mouth. And then deleting the swords that are in her sword holder. I honestly don't know what it's called, a self-letter, I don't know. Basically she takes out from the protector for the blade or whatever, and this is how it looks like. So this sort of presentations I like to do purely out of entertainment. I think it looks nice. It gives a better feel to someone who maybe isn't an artist, right, or a designer, and they might not quite understand how it would look like if she had drawn swords or something. You can do something like this. I'm also going to do the back view, and that'll be it. But you're also probably wondering, what are those things on the sides, the weird scribbly lines? They're not random. I mean, they are random, but they do serve a purpose. The purpose of those things is presentation. I've learned throughout this course of the year of doing design is that presenting the design well, is a very good. It's a thing that you probably need to learn, because it'll sell a lot better. A really well presented design will sell much better than something that's just thrown on the paper, without really thinking. So here you're seeing me add up, gray background. Why am I doing this? No, this is purely for presentation. It helps make the characters pop out, and it just looks kind of cool. I always do this. This is something that I've picked up, but this process is very time consuming and very annoying sometimes. But if you do have time, try to invest in things like that. It'll pay off in the end. The character will look a lot better just because it's popped out a little bit more. So I'm not really gonna change anything about the design anymore, except, you know, on the right you can see she still has her swords inside. I'm going to delete this right about now, actually. What I want to talk about is next video that comes out. In the next video we're going to be painting this character, and I'm not going to paint the back view, I'm only going to paint the front view. But what I will do is, you'll see I'll make a different version of her as well, or an upgrade version of her. So, you know, that is something that I guess you can look forward to. But here you can now see the finished product. I'm presenting it a little bit, you know, it's a video, so presenting it is a lot easier here. I'm zooming in a little bit so you can clearly see her some of her design, which is, you know, good for all those who are watching. You are able to download this file from the internet. I will leave the link in the description box. That way you can dissect this character. The line art is separate from the background, all of the characters are separate, and you know, if you want to, you can do whatever you want with this character, and I hope it helps you out. Thank you for watching this video, and I guess I'll see you in the next one. It's stressful, but it's definitely fun and it's worth it. I know that a lot of you want to work in this, but